There's been a long and storied history in Christian theology of thinking of the image of God in a very literal sense, indicating that in some cosmic way God has a body, and that human beings are in the image of that body, like literally look like that body. It's hard to know exactly what to make of views like this for me because God is spirit, and it's strange for me to think about spirit as being formed in physical ways. Although I'm not ready to say that's impossible. Um, for example, sometimes people will even talk about souls as being made of soulish material, and they'll call it different things, ectoplasm, something like that. Something inaccessible to our physics, right? But having a kind of materiality, a kind of physicality that we can't maybe access, but nevertheless exists. And so, if we think in that way, then literally God, has a body. Um, I don't think there's any really. I don't think there's a lot of indications of that in Scripture, and I think that the very thing, the New Testament explicitly says God is spirit. So I'm not ready to go down that path. However, if you are, one of the big questions then is what to do with genitalia, and it's actually an interesting question, and one that a lot of people think that the from a historical perspective, the way that when we talk about Adam and Eve, Eve sort of being derived from the body of the man, Adam, there's a belief, especially in some Gnostic systems, that in the original way that human beings were, they were what's called an androgyne. This is the Greek andro, meaning ambiguous or full genitalia, as if sort of looking at genitalia as complementary in a way, that in the primordial being, the primordial human, it would have been not separated, it would have been complete whole. And this presumably is what the divine being is like. And so there is literally a way that human beings are fashioned to look like the divine being, and that this even extends to the complementary nature of human genitalia. And this has actually been used in contemporary LGBTQI theologies to talk about the possibility of something like an omni or pan-gendered God, and an aim of human life is to transcend beyond questions of gender and gender identity to some kind of pan or whole or omni gendered being. And what this would be is something like recapturing the original image or the original likeness of God in actually in a physical and I guess in a gender psychological way. My concerns there is I at the end of the day I just have a hard time seeing how this is biblical. I can see sort of from a narrative reading of the Genesis passage the way that the sexed bodies, the biologically sexed bodies, are derived. I could see that as possibly being a reading there. But again, I just go back to the notion that God is spirit, God is supra or transcends somehow gender. I'm not ready to talk about the gendered order as somehow being a reflection of the divine nature. I saw this also get brought up a little bit. The notion is something like this. You'll see this in the Wolf reading. If you go back and read Wolf's reading on gender identity, he says male-female relationality is itself analogous. It's derived from Trinitarian relationality. I worry that this strikes me as a little bit strange. For one really upfront reason, God's triune nature is it's three, right? Father, Son, and Spirit. Relations between the divine persons are three-way, which suddenly somehow collapses down to two when we start talking about male-female gender relations as imaging the divine relations. Why is that? It seems sort of arbitrary. My own personal feeling is I wonder if what's really going on is social Trinitarianism is just a really hot topic and people like it. And I don't want to knock that. I think that social Trinitarianism has been revolutionary and very helpful in theology to be reminded that the divine persons live in relationality and that that's expressed in human life. Absolutely, I'm with that. I just wonder if we've gone a bridge too far when we suddenly start making the image of God about relationality, and then we even talk about male-female gender relations as the primary way in which we're imaging or in the likeness or resemblance of God. That just seems like a very large leap to make. And moreover, like I said, once you start going down that, I wonder if you start looking at humanity in a very physical, genitalia, biologically sexed sense, as possibly being derived from the primordial androgyne or whatever, which again that it's Gnostic. I don't see it in the scriptures. It's certainly and at the very least, it's an outsider tradition. It's not near the center or the mainstreams of Christian doctrine and theology, and so I just worry that we've gone completely off track. Again, that's a worry. If you're convinced, you're convinced, and Wolf is convinced, and Miroslav Wolf is a great theologian. He's a very smart guy. He derives a lot of what he's thinking from Jürgen Moltmann, who himself is brilliant, and they're thinking in very creative and interesting ways. I just worry that once you start going down that rabbit hole, you're gonna find out that it's gone too far. But that's my take.